The motorcycling spirit is a passion that runs deep. It's a love for the open road and the freedom it brings. It's the feeling of the wind against your skin and the rush of adrenaline in your heart. So, what would happen when a hardcore biker desires to challenge the age-old industry and aspires to build one of the most impressive motorcycles to come out of India? Today, we speak with Ranjita RAVI, the co-founder at Orxa Energies, who are building the Mantis, an all-electric performance bike. Ranjita, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
So Ranjita, from biotech to now building performance bikes, a career transition very few people would even think of. What was this journey?
It was a very interesting journey that took me and my co-founders through maybe about 20 countries in the world. I'm the MBA, he's the PhD. We were in Europe for a long time. He came back to India before me, and we were just struck by the changes. Leaving India for your studies and for work for a while, right? I lived 20% of my life in Paris before coming back here. We were struck by the rapid urbanization, the rapid changes and things like that. And we very clearly understood that EV for the sake of EV is not going to fly. We are bikers. It's a recruitment criteria at Orxa.
Really?
Yes, it's a recruitment criteria at Orxa. And for us, the way anything would happen is only if you made a 1:1 replacement of your existing vehicle. And 1:1 is not just in terms of, say, just merely looks, but it also has to be in performance, a 1:1 replacement of your existing IC engine vehicle. And only then will a transition to EVs happen. The total cost of ownership is all nice to speak about, but it's not the only driver.
That's not what a biker looks for, is it?
Absolutely not. A biker is not looking, In fact, they would have an opposite conversation. If you look at the more hardcore bikers, they would probably tell you how less of mileage they're getting on their big bikes, right? So a TCO is not the consideration, and if we need to transition to electric vehicles across the board, right? Not just in the mass market, not just in the lower power segments. We need to transition to EVs, at least in some form or the other, at least some percentage of it, to make a dent. And we need to do that across the board. And for that, we need to figure out what are the levers that really move them, and what better way than to be a biker ourselves.
Interesting. So you came back from Paris somewhere in, I think, 2015. So from 2015 to now, 2023, the Mantis has seen, Mantis essentially is the bike that Orxa makes, one of the many projects that you're working on. But how has that particular journey been from 2015 regarding the Mantis?
That's a fantastic question. The Mantis has evolved so much. And that has been along with our understanding of the state of the art of electric vehicles as well, right? So, like I said, I'm the MBA, my co-founder is the PhD, and our CTO is also someone who comes from a lot of experience in defense and aerospace. This gives us a depth of experience in materials and simulations, in the entire stack of electric vehicle technology, from vehicle engineering, power electronics, actual electronic systems, embedded systems. Our team has expertise on the entire stack of electric vehicles. What this also meant is that the Mantis evolved and has evolved 5 times in the last 8 years. We initially started with a fixed battery and a steel trellis frame and a trike. Some of the earliest videos, if you go way back down on the depths of our YouTube channel, you will see a video of the Mantis with a trike, with the 2 wheels in the front. From a steel structure in the trike and the trellis frame to a more cast structure, we explored swap. Then we did a lot of consumer study and decided that we would not want to introduce swap right now. We explored composite materials, honeycomb structures, different fiber composites, just in the exploration of lightweighting. We have explored cast structures, cast aluminium structures, and that has given the Mantis its final form right now, where we have a Mantis which is equal in performance and weight to the best-in-class IC engine motorcycles. Right? The Mantis that will launch is at 175 kgs, which is as close to a performance motorcycle that you can get.
Yeah, so you're aiming at 117 kgs with I think a very decent power output that you have. So the Mantis is somewhat comparable to a 400cc IC bike, or is that a fair comparison?
No. So the Mantis is at 175 kgs by the time it launches, and you can compare it to a 250cc kind of a motorcycle, where Orxa and Orxa's vision is that we want to electrify this space 200 to 500cc right now. This is our vision, right? And all the future products of Orxa Energies will be in this space that we want to play at.
So you spoke about having 5 different models or versions of the Mantis. You explored various different technologies. In the current EV market, you see a lot of companies, for their go-to market is maybe less than a year, because of various components that are available in various parts of the world. I'm not naming any country. So why do you think that I of course think that proper R&D needs to happen in India, but where does R&D comes into the picture, and where does a business comes into a picture? Because I'm pretty sure that your investors must be wanting to have you launch the product as soon as possible. So how do you strike that essential balance?
We have been accused of being perfectionists, and that is not a compliment. This is, yes, it is not a compliment. We own more than 90% of the components design on the Mantis. So whether it's the vehicle design, the vehicle engineering, the 4+ computers that go on the Mantis, all the work that we do on the battery management system, the thermal management system, rider, all the rider interfaces, human machine interface, vehicle control unit, all of that is designed, developed, and made in-house, including the firmware that is written on the chips, down to that level, and all the way to our own designers arguing it out with the vendors when they don't like the design team. I'm not talking about the engineering team or even the supply chain team. The design team will sit and argue with our plastics vendors when they don't like something. Our supply chain team will hammer down on the vendors if they don't like the aesthetic that's come out. It's a team that has too much ownership, right? And this is what has made the Mantis the product that it is. And at this stage is when we are proud to launch it and share it with the world. Right now, we have recently opened track days as well, so people can come for a track day and ride the bike. And again, we are being quite rebellious, and you can accuse us of whatever if you like. But only the people who come for a track day will get the booking link for the Mantis. We're not going to open it on our website. We're not going to open it for everyone. You need to come for a track day, interact with the Mantis, ride the Mantis for 10 kilometers or so, and then we'll allow you to book the Mantis.
So that's very interesting. So somewhere you said that your team has a lot of ownership related to the product, and that's very rare these days in the day and age of hire and fire and immense pressure in the startup space. How do you go about creating that culture in your company? How would you sort of describe the essential core that is building this employment engine that you have, or the sort of culture that you have?
I think Orxa's culture is maybe something eventually I will write about, and this doesn't necessarily or only come from the tone at the top, and which is what makes it a joy to come here and work with a team every day. So like I said, we have a very tough hiring process. First, you need to be a biker first, and then we'll ask you whether you know how to do search engine optimization, or how to draw a CAD drawing, or how you know how to make a Gerber file. But the first question we'll ask you is what bike you ride. Right? Then the question is in terms of how the teams themselves work with each other. And this is not from Prajwal and me. This has come from the team. They have defined a set of values, of which technical competence is only one. Technical competence is only one of the set of 8 values that they have defined for themselves, and they measure each other against it. So if, something that we keep telling for each other or keep repeating within the team is that we are unique. As a team, we are unique. Each of us is unique. We're either classical music or whether we are salsa dancers or whether we do whatever, we are unique. We are uncompromising to each other. We are uncompromising to our vendor partners. We are uncompromising to each others. We are uncompromising to the other teams, which is why we can do something so unprecedented. And yeah, this will come out not just in our B2C work on the Mantis, but also in all the work that we do in our B2B side as well, in aerospace and defense as well.
So we'll come back to the B2B side of it, because that's of course that's very interesting bit. But we'll sort of start with the two-wheeler segment. So India essentially is the biggest two-wheeler market in the entire world, right? And we have many legacy manufacturers that have paved the way for so many Indian motorcycles to be in various parts of the world, be it Southeast Asia, be it Africa, Middle East, whatnot. So in the massive list of options that us Indians have today in order to buy, what was that one crucial element that you felt was missing, and where do you think the Mantis sort of comes into the entire picture of the various options that we have?
Of the various options that we have, I think so. Overall, if you look at the numbers, 15-20 million units approximate on average have been selling for the last few years. 2/3 of it have always been motorcycles. Only 1/3 has been scooters. We are bikers. So for us, being a biker and riding a motorcycle, building a product that we want to ride, basically, is what we were keen on. In this segment, when you look at electrification in motorcycles, in performance motorcycles, making an electric performance motorcycle is a very, very difficult job to do. Right? One, the motors are you need to have a powerful motor. Right? You can't function, say, in a 4 kilowatt, 5 kilowatt range. You need to function upwards of 18 to 20 kilowatts. We are at 28 kilowatts peak. So that's like 33 horsepower for the ones who were more used to IC numbers, right? If you want any sort of a range. So, motorcycles are not meant for cities. Motorcycles are meant to go out. Right? Motorcycles are meant for the highways or off the highways or wherever it is that your heart takes you. Right? It's a lifestyle. It's a way of living, a motorcycle, right? And if you want that, you need range. If you want range, you need a battery pack, and battery packs can get big and heavy and bulky. A motorcycle cannot be heavy and bulky and unwieldy, right? And combine the two of them, a large battery pack and a large motor, now you start to look at very large currents, right? You can look at 600, 700 amps of current. Can you manage all of those things safely? For us, this is a very interesting and challenging and fun problem to solve. It also makes it a very high barrier to entry, right? So making a motorcycle in this segment that a biker would accept, makes it a very high barrier to entry. So it's tough to engineer, the customer is very discerning, and all of it together makes it a fun problem to solve.
That's very well said. Very well said. So, who do you think is the ideal customer for Mantis, or the target audience for Mantis?
Maybe 2 or 3 of them. So you could be a big biker, someone who's been biking all your life, who's a collector of motorcycles, but your big motorcycle does not work for the city or for short distances. Right? It's going to cook and like it's going to cook you, it's going to get hot, it's inefficient, you don't want to ride it for a short, and short for bigger biker guys being defined as anything less than 150 or 200 kilometers. Right? So that's them. That's a smaller number, but they're quite interesting and very fun to talk to. And the other guys are all the people who are, say, 2 to 3 years working, say, in Bangalore. They want to get to their ID job. They do not want to compromise on their lifestyle. They are considering an electric vehicle. They don't need anything. They don't have anything that matches their performance requirements or their lifestyle requirements, right? Because it is an extension. When you buy a vehicle, it's an emotional decision, right? Yeah. A purchase of a vehicle and a motorcycle most of the time is going to be your first vehicle that you purchase with your own money. It's a personal decision. It's an extension of your personality. It's a statement that you're making about your life, right? To your peers, to your friends, to your family. You are saying something about yourself by the vehicle that you choose, right? And you're not going to compromise on that. So it needs to look good, it needs to perform well, it needs to do all of that. So anyone who's looking for this, the Mantis is for them.
Yeah. But they need to come to the track in order to book it first. That's the basic criteria if you're listening.
Yes.
So, moving on, batteries essentially are the core for all EVs, and it might be one of the toughest puzzle as well to solve. In order to build a vehicle that talks with each other and comes together as a complete solution. The general approach these days, as you know, somewhere I was reading on Vahan, there are about 600 companies that have registered themselves as electric vehicle OEMs in two-wheeler space, not even three-wheeler space. There was 600 a few months ago. So the general approach is just to buy what's there in certain parts of the world and just plonk it onto your vehicle and just get going. Open few dealerships and now boom, you're a OEM, right? So that has been the general approach that we have seen. Why do you felt the need to build your own battery packs? That's the first part of the question. And second is, how do you sort of optimize that to look at, like, in order for it to look sexier? Because battery packs can be ugly, but if you see in the Mantis, it kind of looks as part of the entire frame of the vehicle anyway.
I will let my design team and my vehicle engineering team know that. I'll let them know that our battery packs look sexy. I think that's a very high compliment. Thank you very much. So I think very early on in our journey, and I think maybe back in 2015, 2016, we were also imagining that we could just slap things together from wherever we got them, and that would make a motorcycle. We realized very quickly that assembling procured components essential to the powertrain is not going to make a good motorcycle. And we wanted a motorcycle that we wanted to ride. And like I said, we've been accused of being perfectionists. So that didn't fly very fast. I mean, it didn't work at all. The first problem that we tackled was actually the battery packs. So like I said, we've been attacking each of these problems sequentially. And even back then, this was the first thing that we tackled. Quite interestingly, at the same time, we were selected to be part of Airbus Biz Labs, which has what does an Airbus have to do with electric vehicles? I see your expression.
Yeah.
Right? It started off also our journey on making battery packs for the aerospace. So we make drone battery packs. We've been making battery packs for medium to heavy drones for the last 5 years. We've delivered, I think, upwards of 400 battery packs over the years to different players in the drone space. Now, what that has given us, which is very, very different from any of the other EV OEMs that you would have spoken to, is one of the highest cell to pack mass ratio in the market. Some of the highest power deliveries that we can get out of a battery pack in probably some of the lightest and the smallest footprints for a battery pack. Right? So our 9 kilowatt hour battery pack was already AIS 156 last year. Then the regulation changed, or it got updated. We could have gotten it. It would have met already the requirements, we said, hey, we need to get it recertified anyway. And then we went ahead and made it 10% lighter.
Wow.
Even lighter than it already was, right? So you can see clearly how our technology has evolved in a very different kind of a way than the other EV OEMs have approached it. We have also done multiple defense projects. So our entire ride-by-wire stack that is there is validated on defense platforms. So when you get the Mantis, when you ride the Mantis, and finally when you come for a track day, which I hope you will soon, and you ride the Mantis, you will see that the tech is validated not at just an automotive level, but at a very, very high standard. And this is what we expect of the Mantis as well. Right? So the thermal management system, for example, the one of the battery packs of the Mantis equivalent flies a 60 kg drone running powers 4 times as much as what the Mantis pulls. We manage thermals for that. So we know that the Mantis is not going to have a thermal management problem.
Okay. So what chemistry you generally use for these battery packs?
We use, mostly we have been on NMC chemistries.
Okay. And your techs essentially would be the thermal management and the BMS.
Thermal management, battery management system, the entire battery pack engineering, how the battery pack has been built, keeping in mind the weight, the safety, the reliability, as well as the power output that we want without losing too much of weight, like without gaining too much of weight. All of that comes into how we design and make our battery packs.
So when you did the Electric Bharatmala, which is essentially you went across, the entire region of India and different temperatures, different climates, different conditions as well for the battery pack. What were your learnings essentially? I mean, did you incorporate those learnings already in the Mantis? Like what were those?
Yes, and this was a ride not done by us. It was an external person, external to Orxa Energies. He was a mentor. He was a mentor at an accelerator in Bangalore. And there were bikers, and they took the bike. We were, my team, so including my co-founder and 3 of our engineers went on a support bike. They were riding the Mantis along with him, but the record is held by someone who is not an Orxa Energies employee. So 13,500 kilometers in 54 days around the perimeter of India, mostly focusing on tier 2 and tier 3 cities. The objective, or at least their objective, of the organizers of the ride was to bring Indian-made startups to tier 2, tier 3 cities, just to show them that startups like this can also be made in India. Right? For us, the challenge of when they came to us, when the organizers of this ride came to us with this, and they're like, Ranjita, I want to do 14,000 kilometers around India on your bike. Prajwal and me went to a nearby microbrewery and wrote 3 pages, 2 columns thick, okay, of all the problems that we would have possibly on the Mantis, and then went back and told them, okay, let's do this. I still have it. I still have the 3 pages. It's in my notepad, right? Eventually, what happened was, of course, we faced issues on charging, right? Because Tier 2, Tier 3 cities, the grid electricity is not really conditioned. We had a lot of challenges on the charging, where to charge, how to charge, when to charge. The timelines of this ride were very, very fixed, right? We had to be back here by March 29th. We couldn't miss a day even, and we did not. We had to be back here on March 29th. March 29th, 2 p.m., we were inside the last toll gate entering Bangalore. Right? We didn't miss even a day. The challenges that we faced were primarily on charging and all of that. What we did not face challenges on, the entire vehicle, the entire powertrain, and all of the battery pack. We had 4 issues on the Mantises, both the Mantises together in the entire 27,000 kilometers together. One lamp of one of the headlamps of the 2 bikes failed. We were in a landslide in the Manipur-Nagaland segment, where they rode, I think, about 150 kilometers in the landslide in slush during the rains. And during that time, we had one issue on the belt and one issue on the pulley. And the fourth problem was a flat tire.
These are so typical problems that you would face if you're doing a ride across the perimeter. I mean, even more, like for example, like let's take a very simple example. As you go higher up the altitude, your engine oil pressure is one of the biggest problems that you would face. And that's like, there are along the list of many other problems. So, I mean, the kind of things that failed were very minimal, very surprised.
So we had no failures on the core powertrain. We had no failures on the vehicle frame or the structure, and these were pre-production prototypes. Some of them were 3D printed metal parts on the bike because we were validating the structure and the final design of the Mantis itself. -2 degrees in Manali, the entire segment, Dehradun, Manali to Srinagar, -2 degrees at night because it was still February, plus 42 degrees during the daytime in the section from Haryana to Rajasthan. It's the first heat wave of the year, mid-March. This was mid-March, I remember, because it was the birthday of one of my teammates who was riding that segment. 42 degrees during the day, and they were riding 400 kilometers a day for the 3 days that they went through that entire desert segment.
So very hopeful for the Mantises to be in hands of like almost 1,000 people, and for them to sort of try it out across the Indian perimeter. Every July when you see riders going to Ladakh, the next year we should see at least having a dozen of Mantises going to Ladakh.
Oh, for sure. I hope so too.
So moving on, FAME 2 has been very incremental in bringing a massive wave of adoption in India. Started in 2019, almost a corpse of about 10,000 crores. It really helped bring massive change, or at least it brought the electric vehicle industry to mainstream, or at least a very viable option for not just tier 1 cities but even tier 2 cities to consider as an option. But recently the kind of subsidies that were given, it sort of got slashed down. I mean, earlier it was 15,000 rupees per kilowatt hour to now it is 10,000 rupees per kilowatt hour, and it is also capped at about 15% of the total ex showroom price. So essentially a bike or a scooter that you would get for about 1.1 lakh now costs about 1.45 lakhs. So it's a very massive price hike that has happened since the end of June. Essentially, what do you think essentially is happening with the FAME subsidies, and do you think the FAME 3 would be arriving soon? And in the entire adoption space, what is the importance of subsidies that you think in driving the entire revolution?
So I wouldn't be able to answer on what's happening on the FAME subsidies and why it's changing and all of that. I'm not in a position to answer those questions. The Mantis is not eligible for the FAME subsidies. We do not come under that category. We're not looking at the FAME is for mass adoption, right? We are looking at the performance segment. So the Mantis is not eligible for FAME subsidies. In general, I think for an early adoption or for early interest, supply side subsidies do help. But I think, and as an IP owner, right, I've told you Mantis Orxa Energy has 90% of the IP on the Mantis. Technology ownership and Make in India is something that's very, very important. As a philosophy behind what is there of the FAME, right, we agree very strongly in that we should be making locally. It changes a lot in terms of your supply chain and the resilience. I think about 85-90% of value add on the Mantis happens in India. And we have been working with a lot of local suppliers, a lot of tier 2 or mid-level kind of automotive component players and suppliers have been adding lines to meet our requirements as well. So we believe we are helping in some way encourage them and help them grow their business lines as well. Philosophically, we agree very, very strongly with that we should be making more in India, and localization is a strong power in helping bringing down the cost of making something, right, versus importing, right? And I think it's very important for us. Electric vehicles is a once in a century opportunity, right? This is our century. This is what we're going to do. This will change how things are manufactured and how it can be manufactured. If we are able to bring in that kind of tech here and that know-how and the manufacturing prowess, it will change a lot of things, and it will change the course of what we can do in the next few years. So philosophically, yes, I agree with that. But since we are not eligible for the FAME, I'll not be able to comment on FAME 2 or FAME 3 or...
No worries. So maybe not now, but do you have plans in the future of, not just the Mantis, but being part of different categories of not just motorcycles, but scooters, or, maybe something else?
I don't want to answer something that's going to make my design head come and like shoot me or something, but no, I don't see scooters in our future, in the near future at least. For us, like I said, our vision and our chosen place is this 200 to 500cc space. There is a lot to do here. This alone in India right now is a 3.8, nearly $4 billion market. Right? It's a very interesting market. There are a lot of IC incumbents also who are making some interesting moves in this space, right? In the 200 to 500cc space. It's very interesting and very, very, it's good to be here right now. And we feel that there's a lot of value add that we can do in this space. So I think for a while that we see, at least the next few motorcycles that will come after the Mantis, will continue to play around here.
And so this is from the vehicle side, but your, some of the core business that you have related to battery packs, where do you see that particular thing as well evolving?
We will continue to play in the performance space. I think if you had to summarize Orxa Energies in a way, we are a performance electric vehicle company. We choose anything that's performance, and that's what we like to play in. So even in the drone space or the defense side or any of the other businesses that we've done, we've even done some leisure vehicles and things like that, right? For us, our preference is performance. So fun things to ride, right? That's what you want.
All right. So the last question for the episode. This is the question that we ask to all the people who come onto the podcast, and it might be kind of frivolous in nature, but it's very interesting to get unique perspectives from all the different companies that are there in this ecosystem. So here it goes. If you had the opportunity or the authority to make one decision which would sort of influence the entire EV ecosystem in India, what would that decision be?
That's a nice question. Entire EV ecosystem.
Yeah, so right from two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler, everything from component level to cell manufacturing, everything.
I would say that EV OEMs or EV startups and their founders need to be riding and driving EVs.
That's very interesting.
I don't see that. I don't see that.
Is there any particular category that you're referring to?
It could be anything. Yeah. Personally, my first vehicle when I came back to India was a 2015 two-door E2O. I've recently moved. Personally, I have moved to a Nexon just recently. And when I look around, when I go to events, when I participate in different panel discussions, other things, and I see other EV founders coming in and talking about EVs, and they don't come in an EV, could be anything, could be your own vehicle, could be another vehicle. I don't know, it's maybe a frivolous thing like you said, but it would be interesting to see how the advocacy would change. I would like to see how the EV founders' advocacy changes when they also are an EV user? I know confidently I can answer I am an EV user in 2015. Even in my E2O, I was driving 100 kilometers a day. In the Nexon now, I have done weekend drives of 1,000 plus kilometers. I have done that. I can tell you what's the problems in charging infrastructure on the highways because it's my lived experience.
Exactly.
I have lived it. I have been there at 2 in the morning, I don't know, somewhere near Chitradurga, and figuring out the charging infrastructure, right, at 2 a.m. on the way to Goa. I think walking the talk rather than theoretical advocacy is something I would like to see more.
This is very interesting because I think about 2 years ago, Reggie Pillai, who was the president of India Smart Grid Forum, he was there on the podcast, and he somewhat mentioned the similar thing, but for the government side. He said that all the government vehicles who are given to, let's say, some like either ministers or employees or whatever, these needs to be electric for first, before sort of influencing the entire nation to convert to electric. We need to sort of take that particular step first, and then we can go ahead and say that to others.
I think I'm so controversially rebellious that I have been on multiple panel discussions where it has been about EVs, and I start off by asking how many people in the audience drive EVs and how many people of my co-panelists drive EVs.
No, that's a very, very interesting sort of take on this, and this is something that we truly stand by. If you want to promote EVs, you need to drive it, and there are many things that are associated with it, like you said, the charging infrastructure, talking to different communities when you have a certain issue about your vehicle, having the realization that EVs are much faster and have amazing torque than your ICE vehicles. So things like that you need to experience firsthand than on a piece of paper.
Yeah, exactly. Because graphs, you can talk whatever you want about, say, motor curves or battery charging curves or 60 kilowatt fast charger or 7 kilowatt fast charger and all of that, whatever you want. But a lived experience of 2 in the morning trying to figure out where the nearest fast charger is and that you find it and you charge and you did make it in time for your meeting in the morning is a very different experience, and it makes you talk about EVs in a very personal way. And I think maybe you should start that as well with your panelists, right?
Definitely. This is the next selection criteria for us when people reach out. This sort of brings me to this one story that happened. We were in Abu Dhabi, I think, just in May, and we wanted to do this shoot in the desert, and we rented this Audi e-tron, beautiful car, and we were in a city like Abu Dhabi, you would expect that it would have a lot of chargers, right? You go on PlugShare, we saw there are many, I think about 4 or 5 fast chargers, because we wanted to do it quickly. And we turn up to this 120 kilowatt fast charger, and we tried to charge, and first it asked, in order to register for the app, you need a local number. So that was the first problem for us. So we got the local number, we came back. After registering on our local number, it says you need an Emirates ID. And we were like, how do we get Emirates ID? So I had to call a friend of mine who gave his Emirates ID and all of that. Then, okay, next step, we need to add our credit card, right? I added my Indian credit card. It says, no, we need a local bank only. So it essentially took us 6 hours to, figure out all of the ways that in order to get our car charged. So yeah, I mean, experiences like these, essentially teaches you there are so many gaps, so many things that are there in the market. We cannot just have a very surface level discussion about, what is happening, what needs to be done and all of that. You need to be out there on the ground experiencing these things, because I'm pretty sure that their tech guy must be saying that I don't want to pay for extra server space for an Indian bank to have their credit card to be working over here and all of that stuff. So these kind of things need to be incorporated. So the culture essentially that you're building at Orxa is very interesting, because at every level, right from supply chain to design to purchase for that matter, would sort of have that personal connection with the vehicle, solving problems. So kudos to you.
Thank you for summarizing that very well. That's really why we hire. That's really why we hire bikers. Even in what we've decided with the track days, my co-founder and I, is that we will personally meet the first 1,000 bikers who come for the track days. So we've met, I think, around the first 100 so far. Only about 900 more to go. But we will be meeting each one of them and understanding from them what their experience on the Mantis was. Because only by doing things which are not immediately scalable do you make a scalable solution.
What a final line to end the episode. Thank you so much, Ranjita, for being on the podcast. It has been one of the most fun conversations that we have had.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.